Welcome to the Party Report, Black Panther Party, Legacy Network, BPP, ALN.org. I received your holiday. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck early this morning in south central Turkey, killing more than 1,700 people in Turkey and neighboring Syria. Though the death toll is expected to keep rising, dozens of powerful aftershocks followed, including the second 7.5 magnitude earthquake in southeastern Turkey. The epicenter of the initial quake is near the city of Gaziantep, which houses hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees, and where one of its largest operations, where the U.S. runs one of its largest operations. Both the government and the rebel-held areas of northwestern Syria reported heavy casualties. This is a survivor speaking from the Aleppo region. Quote, there are 12 families trapped here, and no one managed to get out. They are all inside here. So far, no one has come here to see where people are. There's no civil defense. We've been working with our hands since 3 a.m. Unquote. The Pentagon shot down a Chinese balloon off the coast of South Carolina on Saturday, several days after it was first spotted over Montana, a state that's home to a major military base and silos holding scores of intercontinental ballistic missiles. The high-altitude balloons appeared over the United States prompted Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to cancel a planned trip to Beijing, accusing China of unacceptable and irresponsible spying. China's defense ministry claimed the balloon was a weather research station that had blown off course and accused the U.S. of an obvious overreaction on Capitol Hill. Republican leaders were quick to accuse President Biden of weakness, saying he failed to shoot down the balloon quickly enough. A Pentagon official responded by telling reporters there were at least 3 similar incursions of Chinese surveillance balloons during the Trump administration. We'll have more on the story after the headlines. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces shot and killed at least 5 Palestinian men earlier today during a raid on the city of Jericho. The killing came as Israeli troops raided a refugee camp, which had been under siege for more than a week. This is a camp resident who witnessed the violence. Quote, they went in and out and did not have a specific house in mind. They targeted the whole camp, and they started from the entrance of the camp onwards with their ill doing, and then they left. And in this mess, houses on the side, they left us in this mess. Houses on the side of the camp were targeted as if they were criminals while they were asleep in their houses. Unquote. This follows the killing of 26-year-old Palestinian Abdullah, who was unarmed when Israeli soldiers at a military outpost south of Nablus shot him Friday. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people held rallies in 20 cities across Israel Saturday to demand Israel's far-right government cancel plans to severely limit the power of the judiciary. It was the 5th straight week of protests. In Iran, Supreme Leader Ayatollah has pardoned tens of thousands of prisoners, including people involved in recent anti-government protests. According to Iranian state news outlets and related news, the award-winning filmmaker Jafar Panahi has been released from prison on bail after he went on hunger strike protesting his detention. The 62-year-old was arrested in July for speaking up about another director, Mohammad Razalov, who'd been in prison a few days earlier for criticizing police violence. In Iraq, human rights groups are demanding justice for Tabia Ali, a 22-year-old YouTube star who was killed by her father last week. The two were reportedly in a dispute involving Ali's decision to live alone in Turkey. She was visiting Iraq when her father strangled her to death. Human rights advocates are calling on the Iraqi government to enact legislation against gender-based violence, as no current laws criminalize domestic violence. This is activist Hafsa honoring speaking from a protest in Baghdad on Sunday. Quote, she was a famous person, well known on social media. Just as there are many women who don't have a voice and who can't make their voices heard, we are here to represent the voice of oppressed women, the victims who don't have a voice, in other unquote. In other news from Iraq, loved ones of environmentalist and water protector Jazim al-Assadi are demanding his safe return after he was kidnapped by an unknown armed group near Baghdad last week. Al-Assadi is the head of the group Nature Iraq, which fights for the protection of the country's southern wetlands, and a recipient of the Goldman Prize. Former President of Pakistan and military chief Pervez Musharraf died on Sunday at the age of 79. He died from a rare medical condition in Dubai, where he'd been living in exile since 2016. Musharraf seized power in 1999. Cohen resigned in 2008. The end of his rule came following a tumultuous year in Pakistan, which saw growth of military groups in the assassination of Prime Minister and political foe Benazir Bhutto, where Shah suspended the constitution, imposed emergency rule in 2007. He was a key ally to the U.S. and President George W. Bush in the so-called War on Terror following the September 11th attacks. In 1999, Musharraf planned an attack on a region of Indian-controlled Kashmir. Over 500 Indian soldiers were killed, and at least 400 Pakistani soldiers were killed, though some estimates place the numbers much higher. At least one woman and 4 children drowned Sunday on a boat carrying some 40 refugees from Turkey sank off the Greek islands of Ledos. This came just days after another 8 refugees, including a pregnant woman and a 4-month-old baby, died off the Italian islands of Lampedusa. Survivors said they experienced extreme cold, dehydration, and didn't have food for days at sea as their boat had departed from Tunisia last week. In Britain, tens of thousands of nurses and EMTs launched a coordinated strike today, the largest labor action in the history of the governmental-run National Health Service. More strikes are planned during the week as health workers ramp up their demands for living wages in the UK's worst inflation in 4 decades. This is a striking nurse. Quote, I think we're going to find it harder and harder to recruit, harder and harder to retain staff. A lot of people have left their professions already because they're so disillusioned. I think we've got to look at the future, and that's what this is all about, unquote. The nurse stoppage came amidst a wave of strikes across various sectors in the UK. In Chile, wildfires have killed at least 24 people as some 260 blazes raged in the center of South Chile over recent days, fanned by dry winds and temperatures reaching as high as 104 degrees. Officials said Sunday some 270,000 acres have been scorched. This is an evacuee in the region. Quote, I left my house with only clothes I was wearing. I put on a pair of slippers and some tights and left the house. There was no time to set up a fire break. Nothing. I think everyone here went through the same situation. The wind speed changed very fast and everything suddenly started to burn. It was all very fast, unquote. A record-breaking Arctic blast sent temperatures plummeting across much of the northeastern United States and parts of Canada Saturday. In New Hampshire and in Washington, recorded the nation's coldest ever wind chill at a negative 108 degrees Fahrenheit. The death of an infant was reported in western Massachusetts from a fallen tree. Meanwhile, in Texas, the Austin American Statesman issued a rare front-page editorial condemning officials for their response to last week's ice storm, which left over 150,000 Austin residents without power. 10 people were killed across the southern U.S. by the storms, 7 of them in Texas. Some 460,000 people lost power. The Democratic National Committee approved a radical overhaul of the primary calendar, making South Carolina the first primary contest of 2024 presidential elections, replacing the Iowa caucus. Primaries in Nevada, New Hampshire, Georgia, and Michigan would then follow. The new voting schedules intended to give more weight to voters of color, but New Hampshire and Georgia continue to oppose the changes and have not yet moved their primary dates. They have until June to do so or face sanctions if they refuse to comply, including losing half their delegates. In Missouri, the death penalty abolitionists are calling on Republican Governor Mike Parson to cancel Tuesday's planned execution of Leonard Raheem Taylor, a black man who has always maintained his innocence. Taylor was convicted on 4 counts of first-degree murder over a 2004 killing of his girlfriend and their 3 young children. Witnesses say Taylor was 2,000 miles away from the scene of the crime at the time of the murders. Taylor recently spoke from prison with Missourians for alternative to the death penalty. Quote, "No, I did not do it. Not only did I not do it, I did not commit the crime, but like I said, there was no motive. You know, I had no reason to commit the crime. I wasn't even in the state of Missouri when these murders took place," unquote. The Innocence Project says Taylor's lawyer effectively abandoned him, providing an incompetent offense trials. They're asking Governor Parsons to delay the execution until a thorough investigation can be completed. At the 65th Grammy Awards that were held in Los Angeles Sunday night, Beyonce made history when she won a 30-second statue, making her the most awarded artist in the history of the Grammys. Viola Davis won for audiobook of her memoir, Finding Me, and joins the exclusive EGOT Club, having won all 4 major entertainment awards, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Kim Petras and Sam Smith also made history, becoming the first openly trans non-binary duo to win a Grammy, bringing home the award for their hit Unholy. First Lady Joe Biden presented the Iranian singer Sharvin Ajpur with a new song for Social Change Special Merit Award for Yo Roma, which has become an anthem for the Iranian uprising. The singer was arrested after the song went viral in his album Bill Ready trial. And those are some of the headlines. This is the Legacy Network, bppaln.org. As usual, the question is, where do we go from here?